Hello folks and welcome to this video on Macbeth. We are now on to Act 1 Scene 7. If you haven't watched the previous videos in this series, I recommend that you don't start with this one, that you go back and start from the beginning, because in every video we're building on the knowledge that we've gained in the previous sessions. So, in order to check that knowledge, what I want you to do is pause the video, write down a definition for each of these key pieces of vocabulary, and then start the video again when you're ready to get the answers. So a soliloquy is when the character speaks on stage, the audience hear them, but the other characters don't. So it's really as if the character is speaking their thoughts out loud. And in today's scene, Macbeth is going to start with a soliloquy. A euphemism is when a character uses words that sound better, they sound reasonably positive or reasonably acceptable, and they would say those words instead of saying something that's really quite unpleasant. So, for example, we often use euphemisms in our society when we speak about death. Instead of saying the word death or dead, we might say they've gone to a better place. A motif is a repeated idea or symbol or phrase. And the divine right of kings is the idea in Shakespeare's time and in the time of Macbeth that the king derives their power from God. So the king has authority, they have power, and they have it because God has given them that position. Okay, bit of new vocabulary for today's scene then, the word emasculate. So you can see it there in the middle of the screen. You might recognise part of it, mask or masculine, is part of this word. And the letter E, the prefix E, is put at the front of this in order to make it the opposite. So the definition of this word is to remove a man's masculinity or to present a man as being feminine. You could say emasculate, emasculating, emasculation. So Lady Macbeth emasculates Macbeth. She makes him appear more feminine. She attacks his masculinity. Lady Macbeth is emasculating Macbeth. Macbeth experiences emasculation. So you could use it in all of those senses. Some examples then. So when Lady Macbeth says that her husband is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way, she is verbally emasculating her husband. When she says to Macbeth, when you durst do it, then you were a man, Macbeth is emasculated. He experiences emasculation. Both of those quotations are ways in which Lady Macbeth describes her husband as being too feminine to kill Duncan, too weak to go ahead with the regicide. Okay, stop the video and I want you to finish this final box for me. So Lady Macbeth emasculates her husband when, ... finish that sentence and then start the video again when you're ready. Right, there's lots of things that you could have done with this sentence. One example is Lady Macbeth emasculates her husband when she says he's too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Lady Macbeth emasculates her husband when she presents him as being too feminine to commit regicide. Okay, so that's our vocabulary, and this is the extract that we're going to look at. This is the first half of Act 1, Scene 7. At the start of this extract, we have oboes and torches, so this is a kind of big trumpet announcement. There are torches which indicate that this is the evening time, and this all sets the scene for a big royal dinner, a feast to celebrate King Duncan's control over Scotland and the defeat of the Norwegian invaders. Then a server comes in and there's various servants with dishes. They're serving food at the dinner. And then those people who are bustling around disappear and Macbeth enters the stage. And this is the first time we've seen Macbeth on stage on his own. And it's really interesting because he starts by absolutely dithering. And he says, if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. Right, well, what on earth does that mean? He's kind of starting in the middle of a stream of consciousness. So he says, if it were done when 'tis done. Well, he's talking about the murder. If the murder were done, it were well, it were done quickly. He's saying, I wish this was over with. I wish this was happening really quickly and the murder could just be finished. Then he says, if the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and end-all. Here, but here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we'd jump the life to come. Okay, now with Shakespeare, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by the words that you don't know, or the fact that the words that you do know don't quite seem to fit together in a way that you understand. So what you need to focus on is those words that you do understand and fitting them into the plot of the play, which you know really well. So Macbeth here is talking about consequences and he's talking about success. So he's thinking that he wants success in killing Duncan, but there are going to be consequences to this. As we know, every time we do something wrong, there is a consequence to that action. And he continues his soliloquy. But in these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions which being taught return to plague the inventor. Again, focus on those words that you do recognise. So plague, well, we know that Macbeth is going to be plagued by guilt later in the play. He continues, this even-handed justice. Well, justice, you probably know that word. Justice is about punishing wrongdoings and putting things right. So this even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poisoned chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed. Then, as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Well, we looked at the word hostess in the previous scene, and we know that a host or a hostess is a person who's in charge of a party. They welcome their guests in, they look after them. They don't carry the knife in order to kill the guest at their party. And Macbeth continues, besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels. Well, Duncan is so good, he's like an angel. So why would you kill someone who is angelic, who is perfect in their behaviour? So his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet-tongued, against the deep damnation of his taking off. And pity, like a naked newborn babe, striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim, horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye that tears shall draw in the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which overleaps itself and falls on the other. Well, we know that Macbeth's hamartia, his fatal flaw, is his unchecked ambition, and this is going to lead him to fall once he's committed the act of regicide. Okay, so in yellow, I've highlighted some of the reasons why Macbeth is thinking, actually, maybe I shouldn't go through with this. Maybe I shouldn't commit regicide. And what I want you to do is look through those things that I've picked out in yellow and almost translate them. So what are these reasons really in modern English that Macbeth shouldn't commit regicide? For example, the first one is consequence. Well, these are the consequences of our actions, the punishment that comes after we do something wrong. Okay, so stop the video, go through the points that I've got in yellow and see if you can come up with a modern translation of the reasons why Macbeth shouldn't commit regicide. Okay, and then start the video again when you're ready. Here are my thoughts then. So the consequences, that's the judgment here on earth and after death. We know that a sin as great as regicide, as murder, will lead someone to go to hell, at least in Shakespeare's time. There's a sense of psychological torment as well. So Macbeth talks about how the bloody instructions return to plague the inventor. Well, later on in the play, Macbeth is plagued by the thought of guilt. He tells Lady Macbeth that his mind is full of scorpions. There's also a reference to the poison chalice, which I've not put there on the screen, sorry, but the poison chalice, which is an image of something really good, something really positive, a gift of great value, which actually comes with poison in it. So you can see there on the screen that I've put a cup, and we often think of things like the Holy Grail as being like a chalice. It could be a cup that's made out of gold, that's covered in jewels, but actually if you drink out of it, you get poisoned. So Macbeth here thinks that he might be reaching for something really good, but actually it's going to harm him. Next, we have the word kinsman, so this means relative. So Duncan and Macbeth are cousins. Well, you probably shouldn't kill your cousin. Well, you definitely shouldn't kill your cousin. And then we have the word subject. Now, a subject is someone who owes loyalty to the king. So at the minute, if you live in the UK in 2025, we are the subjects of King Charles. A few years ago, we were the subjects of Queen Elizabeth II. So we owe loyalty to our monarch, to our king or queen, and we shouldn't harm them or attack them. We've already talked about Macbeth being a host. A host should welcome their guests and look after them, definitely shouldn't kill them. And then we learn that Duncan is a really virtuous king. So the word meek means really kind and gentle and caring, and we learn that he's like an angel in many ways. He's full of virtues, he's full of positive qualities. And then finally, the last yellow bit on the screen, Macbeth talks about his vaulting ambition. Now, if you've ever done gymnastics, you know that a vault is where you jump over a kind of wooden structure. You might vault over a river or something like that. You might do a pole vault. You might have seen that in the Olympics, where people put the pole into the ground and then jump over the stick that's suspended into the air. So vaulting is to do with jumping up and hopefully landing in the right place. But Macbeth is talking about overleaping himself, jumping too far and then falling down as a result of that. So Macbeth knows that he shouldn't kill Duncan for all sorts of different reasons. He's his cousin, he's his subject, he's his host, he should look after him. Duncan's a really good king, he's got lots of virtues, and also this act of regicide is going to lead to Macbeth himself being metaphorically poisoned, being psychologically tormented, and he's going to fall down as a result of what he's choosing to do here. Now, what's also really interesting in this particular scene is that Macbeth doesn't really say the word murder at any point, and actually, neither does Lady Macbeth. So we're just going to finish reading this scene, and then I want you to look for the euphemisms that they use for murder. So Lady Macbeth comes in and Macbeth turns to her and says, "Hi now, how are you doing? What's going on?" And Lady Macbeth says, "He is almost supped." Macbeth replies, "Has he asked for me?" Lady Macbeth almost laughs at him here. She says, "No, you're not. He has. Like, you're the host. You should be at this dinner with your guest. Why are you hanging around out here?" And Macbeth says, "Really, definitely, we will proceed no further in this business. We are not going to kill King Duncan." He continues, "He hath honoured me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn nigh in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon." And Lady Macbeth is absolutely furious when Macbeth says this. So she says, "Was the hope drunk when you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And awakes at night to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time such I account thy love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valour as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteems the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the adage?" And Macbeth replies, "Prithee peace, as in please be quiet, stop talking. I dare do all that may become a man, who dares do more is none." So Macbeth decides, there's so many reasons why I shouldn't kill Duncan, I'm not going to do this. And Lady Macbeth then absolutely attacks his masculinity and says, if you don't do this, then you're not truly masculine. You're afraid of things, you're a coward, you're not even fit to be a soldier, is the implication of what she says. And Macbeth says, please be quiet, stop talking about this. Okay, but what I'm interested in here is the euphemisms that they use for murder. And a euphemism, as we checked earlier in the video, is a word that replaces something that sounds pretty unpleasant. So in this context, the word that's really unpleasant is murder. And the euphemisms that they use are things like it and deed. They don't actually want to say murder. So pause the video, read through the information on the screen, see if you can find 3 or 4 euphemisms that they use, and then start the video again when you're ready. Right, here we go. It, assassination, blow, deed, taking off, deed, and business. Now, if it were done when it is done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. So he's talking about the murder here, but Macbeth cannot bring himself to say the word murder because he doesn't want to admit how horrific his thoughts actually are. Assassination isn't strictly a euphemism, but I've included it in here anyway, because the word assassination has political connotations. So a murder tends to be something that's done in a moment of passion or something that's done because of a personal reason, whereas an assassination is done for political reasons. So think of the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, for example. This blow means a hit. Well, actually, he's going to stab him multiple times. Deed is repeated twice, so deed means action. Taking off again means murder, but he's not using that word. And this business sounds really clinical, when actually, again, what Macbeth and Lady Macbeth mean are the brutal murder of King Duncan. So they use these words to avoid admitting the full horror of what they're about to do. Now, here are the quotations which link in with this idea of being masculine or emasculated. So Macbeth tells Lady Macbeth that we will proceed no further in this business. He's dominating, he's taking charge, he's asserting his patriarchal power over his wife. And then she comes back at him and says, "Are thou afraid? Are you afraid to do this?" Now, for a soldier who's just won the battle against Norway, who's just faced up against the traitor MacDonald and unseamed him from the knave to the chops, Macbeth is not going to want to say, "Actually, yes, I am afraid." So he's going to want to stand up to that. And he tries to do that here. He says, "I dare do all that may become a man," and saying, I am manly, like, don't talk to me like this. However, in the next video, we're going to look at how this idea crumbles. Zooming in a little bit on this particular quotation then, what I want you to do is copy it out and annotate it. When you're annotating, you're thinking about what methods are being used and why those particular methods are used. So here are the words I want you to focus on annotating, and here's an example of what an annotation might look like. We've got the word we, which is a plural pronoun, so that's the method. And then the reason why it's used, well, Macbeth believes they are united in their ambitions. Okay, so pause the video, copy that out, take a couple of minutes to annotate it with the method and why it's used, and then start the video again when you're ready. Right, so this second one is a modal verb. The word will is a modal verb. And if you think about your modal verbs, I put them on the screen there, will is really definite. Our modal verbs range from words that are quite unsure, quite uncertain, so might, through could, should, and then to will, which is really definite. And here Macbeth is saying that he's really confident that Lady Macbeth will agree with him. Then, when he says no further, this is saying that Macbeth believes that they are not going to commit regicide. He's made his decision. He is 100% certain they are not going to go through with this murder. And then the final word, this is our euphemism that we were talking about a couple of minutes ago. And this shows us that Macbeth cannot find words for the horrid image. He doesn't want to put thought of regicide into words and therefore have to face what he's really been thinking about. Okay, so much information in that. I've realised this video has actually turned out to be rather long. So what I want you to do is stop the video and work on a bit of a summary so that you can kind of process all this information. So my question to help you with this is, how has Macbeth changed in this scene so far? Think about the start, you've got the quotation there, the middle and the end of the scene. Jot down some notes and then watch the next video, which is going to be about the end of Act 1, Scene 7.